Bravo is therapy. That's why we're here.
Yeah, you know it.
It's time to take A Therapeutic Dose, a prescription-strength reality TV podcast that explores the intersection of reality TV and therapy. Possible side effects may include entertainment, strong emotional reactions, and/or laughter. Here are your hosts, Ramona Ramirez and Margee McGee.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Therapeutic Dose, where we meet at the intersection of reality TV and therapy. I am Margee McGee, and with me, as always, is my dear friend and co-host.
Hello, I am Ramona Ramirez. Margee, I already told you how much I'm glad to see you.
I'm so glad to see you, too.
Without you in my life, I don't know.
I mean,
it would be shitty.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned that you might not have gotten out of bed this morning, and I think it's important and that was thematically what was underlying this whole episode. It was just a through line of depressions of varying degrees. Like, Erica was able to manage hers, and Sutton's dad succumbed to his, That's depression. It's an illness, and we get a reprieve, we get recovery, or in the worst cases, like a cancer, a bad one. I was just thinking when I was watching this episode, like, I know I've lived a nice long life, and I know people who have gotten cancer diagnoses and survived, and I know people who've gotten that diagnosis and it's been fatal, and same with depression. I have plenty of friends. I'm surrounded by friends who are in treatment for depression, myself included, and who survive on a daily basis. And I also have a number of people who got a fatal case. And I just appreciated this episode for taking some of the stigma off of that. Like, as ridiculous as Kyle is, she did ask the right question. She said, "When did your dad get sick?" And people are so quick to go like, "Oh, he had cancer. That's horrible." But the second people hear depression, they're like, "Why didn't he just get better? Just fix it." And it's like, it's an illness, guys. So the right question is, when did your dad fall ill? And how long was he sick for? And when did it become terminal? Like when Sutton described, he was really off the day she last saw him. He was in his final stages. And I'm a believer, like, whether there was a gun in the house or not, he was killing himself with alcohol and drugs. It would have, had it not happened in an instant that day, he was working on his way out. And that's not him, that's his illness. It was the way cancer cells multiply, depression, if you wind up with a fatal case, and he didn't have proper treatment. She said he wasn't in therapy. It's what you always talk about, that you take your medications with a team. The last time you did it, there were 3 people in the room to walk you through it on the other side.
Yeah.
So he didn't have proper treatment. Anyways, that was a long, wandering talk. But
it wasn't wandering. It was so relevant to this episode. It was so easy for me to take the notes up until, because, again, I watch it for fun and for free. And then not really for free. Obviously, we all pay for our fucking streaming services, but that is a saying that people in 12-step rooms for fun and for free. I don't even remember what that's in regards to.
About like being of service.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
Just doing stuff without expectations of getting something back.
Yeah. Yes. So when I watch it for the first time, like the night it airs, it's like I get to like relax and just enjoy it or absorb it. Taking notes is a different thing, especially this season has been so hard to take the notes. I got to the part, and then like right before they were going to go into her going to the house, I think I even took a nap, like in the middle of the day, like a full depression nap. And I resisted finishing my notes. Like, I had plenty of time to finish them before I had to go pick up my son from school. And I didn't. I was up till 11 taking them, which is no big deal. No, 10. Oh, fuck, who doesn't matter what time I was up till taking them. But, like, what I'm saying is I put it off and put it off and put it off because it was so, oof, God damn it. Anyway, this is season 14 of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. episode 11, Mind Your Business. And I guess we could say, yes, mind your business literally, because that's what Reba said. And also, like, mind your business. Like, take care of your internal business. If I need to tend to my mental health, my physical health, my friendships, my whatever, the things that are I care about. I need to mind those as well, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes, like, I thought a lot about this during this episode. Like, sometimes minding your business, tending to yourself is just making yourself comfortable while depression moves through.
Shit, Margee.
Sometimes it's just being like, this house guest is here. I just have to get real comfy and just wait until this visit is over. And if it does not going to leave on its own, then I need to call in some people to help me encourage it the fuck out. Because I get so fixated on what can I do to make this go away? It's again why I appreciated Erica saying it took 4 or 5 years for me to want to get out of bed. And she's like, I'm not a person who slept till noon, and I wouldn't get out of bed till noon if I got out of bed at all.
Yeah.
And like, that is a relatable position if you've ever experienced clinical depression. It's so rude. And it's not
the rudest.
And it feels like it should be, because there's not a cast on your body or you're not hooked up to an IV drip to get treatment. There's this sense of like, I should be able to just change my mind and get the fuck out of bed. It's why one of my favorite characters on TV is the depression kitty in Big Mouth.
Oh my God, yes.
Her entrance is the best thing I've ever seen. This little girl, teenage girl, is like experiencing kind of sad, uncomfortable feelings, and she lays down on the ground. The depression kitty is this big fat cat that is warm and cozy and crawls on top of her, and she's like, it's okay, honey, you just stay where you are. And slowly the weight of the cat starts to like suffocate this girl, and she's like, hey, get off me. Hey, this isn't good anymore. And the kitty's like, no, baby, we're gonna stay here. And anytime I have that feeling of depression, I'm like, there's a big fat cat on me and it has settled in. And I just need to wait until it rolls off, because me trying to change my mind or its mind is not how that fucking illness works. It's just not.
Dude, you can't think your way out of it.
No, it gets worse. It's meaner, because the thoughts are like, get up. And then it's like, you're such a failure. You can't get up. And then it's like, I'm staying in bed longer. It's a really...
because you beat yourself up in your head, which makes you more depressed.
It's
and then
insidious
it's just a fucking circle, man.
Yeah.
Plug for Big Mouth, the whole series. I keep waiting for the last one to come out. I thought it was supposed to come out in October, and it hasn't. But yeah, Jean Smart is the voice of the depression kitty, and it's sultry and alluring and magnetic, and that's why you just succumb. You
don't realize it's happened.
Yeah,
it's so subtle, and it happens slowly, and then all of a sudden. Dude. And I still have trouble catching it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I can sense, I'm like, oh, it's happening, where I want to go home really bad all the time. Like, that's sort of a signal to me. But sometimes I'll miss that and assume it's because I'm tired or stressed or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, it happened. Shit.
Yeah.
I'm laid out and I need to call all my goddamn doctors and be like, it's happening.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's always help. It always cycles out. That's the good thing about being this old and having had depression probably my whole life, but diagnosed in my 20s. It's always cycles out. It cycles in and it feels terminal every time. And I've been blessed enough for it to cycle out every time, because I now know what to do. I call the doctors and I just tell the truth, and there's a way out, but it's real unpleasant. It's
excruciating. Like,
it is. That's the word.
I've always loved driving. I fucking love driving. I loved driving in LA, maybe not to Venice, like once a week. That was a rare thing. There's this joke that, like, if you lived on the East Side and you were dating someone that lived by the beach, you would come to a point where you'd ask yourself, is this really worth a 12, 13-mile drive in traffic on the 10? Do I like this person enough to keep doing that?
I dated a hippie who lived on the beach, and I'll tell you what, by the end, he wasn't the best, but the beach is so great. I was like, you really want to see the beach at sunset? Just go.
Yeah.
So I would go.
I dated a guy that lived on the Venice canals.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that was, he was a nice guy. He was nice. It was fun while it lasted. Whatever. But yeah, it was like, okay, Venice? Nah. Brutal. Savage.
Oh,
Traffic's bad, though. Anyway. But I love driving. And lately I have felt this, I feel so vulnerable right now, so raw. I think I've talked about this before, like as a result of incorporating psychedelic medicine into my regular pharmaceuticals, like your, what do you want? How do I want to differentiate these? Whatever, you know what I'm saying. Fuck it, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. My antidepressants,
like SSRI, like
yes,
standard pharmaceutical antidepressants.
Yes, the typical historical yada. Everything is breaking down. It's doing exactly what it should do. It is allowing me to incorporate all of my talk therapy that I've been doing for so long, especially with this therapist I've been working with for almost 9 years. I continue to get deeper and deeper, incorporating psychedelic medicine into that. What psychedelic medicine does is it slowly or fast, it chips away your ego, even the protective part of your ego. So I just feel so raw and vulnerable. And lately, like when we leave the house as a family, I just, I'm like, Josh, will you drive? I can't, because I'm so scared right now. I feel so scared. Our timeline, my feelings of vulnerability that have nothing to do with our current timeline, like, it just all feels too much. I'm just scared. And for me to feel scared to do things like leave the house, drive my car that I love, it's fucking hard. It's hard to be a former badass and be someone that I am now.
But it's not former. Like, I also feel like I'm so glad that you're sharing this because, like, a week from now, you'll probably be in a totally different headspace. And, like, I love that there'll be a record of that people can hear you walk through this moment in time and see you come out the other side as if this never happened. It's like once I'm plugged back in to my wholest self, it's almost like, right, that happened. But it's the way Erica talks about 4 to 5 years, like that's no time at all. That's so, every day of depression is 4 to 5 years. Every day of making the choice to just fucking hang in and try to fucking do one more, as my first therapist would say, just don't off yourself yet, like that was her only advice when I went through my first real bout of depression. And it was so confusing and it felt so intensely impossible to ever return from.
Yeah.
And that she would say, like, that's the victory. If you do that, you've won the day. And I was like, well, that's stupid. That's not enough. But I see that's just how you have to talk to depression.
Yeah.
It's like, for today, we're just not going to we're not going to follow through with these fantasies.
We're not going to follow through with these fantasies.
Yeah, because they're just nightmares.
It's also it's another way that it's hard to live with depression. It's like these cultural and societal expectations. Productivity is like the number one thing. You're not told, like, yeah, go take a fucking depression kitty nap, Ramona. If that's what's going to bring you relief right now, like that's not on the fucking table. That's embarrassing. That's a shameful action to admit to another person. Because at the very least, like, I should be throwing in a load of laundry, which, to be my credit, I did a couple yesterday. But
that's huge.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I know. That's the depression talking of, yeah, I guess so. It's huge.
Yeah.
You know the weight of that. It's just like, it's thinking about it, obsessing about it, getting exhausted from thinking and obsessing about it. And generally, it's too exhausting to actually get up and do it. So the fact that you found your way to get up and do it.
And you know why, Margee? Bravo. I sat down to take my notes and I was like, okay, put a load of laundry in while you're taking your notes. If I didn't have to sit down and take notes for this podcast yesterday, would I have done laundry? Bravo is therapy. That's why we're here.
Yeah, you know it.
Shall we then? Shall we resume in Augusta?
I mean, yes. And we start with this very, like, the ultimate rich person moment of Sutton in her Augusta house just going, well, where would I have taken off my diamonds? And I was like, oh my God, anyone who can like afford to not know where they took off their diamonds and potentially and not be at all rattled. She was just like, oh, well, where are my most expensive items on the planet? Anyways,
God, that's
made me laugh.
Funny. Kyle comes back to the house sweating after a run, and she engages in some light people-pleasing with her newly appointed surrogate mother. She throws Sutton under the bus because Kyle thinks that she gave me wrong directions. Right, right. And then she and Reba are chatting, and she's like, she tells Reba she's strong, and she's doing this all while having this like wide-eyed, coy gaze at Reba. Like she's kinder to Reba than her own fucking friend Sutton. Go to therapy, Kyle. Go to therapy, man.
Yeah, this was interesting. Kyle says you're very strong mentally in response to Reba saying that she used to run at 5:30 in the morning. So Kyle going running at like 8 a.m. is shocking to her. And then Reba just unsolicited says, I blame my father. I was his favorite child, so he taught me how to be very strong and independent. And I was like, well, that's interesting that she's so forthcoming. And then she asked, what sign are you? And Reba answers, she's a Cancer, but not a typical Cancer. I'm not a nurturer. That's sort of a thesis statement on Reba right there. She is not a typical Cancer. That is for sure.
You know, about just a thought that popped up, like, here I am criticizing Kyle for being people-pleasy, you know, with Sutton's mom. And I was like, wait a minute, Ramona, you've been people-pleasy before. Back when I was a lot younger, especially like if I was meeting my white friends' parents, I would be real tap dancey, lest they think I wasn't, you know, fill in the blank to, you know, what if they were racist is what I'm trying to say. So
no, I feel like it's an identifiable adult child of an alcoholic thing. I do it. I did it all the time and still fight not to do it with any boss I'm with. Generally, it's male bosses because that's my daddy issues, you know. But I'm so middle aged now that it's like ridiculous to see a woman of my age and experience walk into an office and go like, "Hi, how are you doing?" Like I sound like a pre-K teacher, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you're just people pleasing and trying to like win their affection," and like that is an expired tactic. Sweet Margee.
So expired. And yes, you are sweet.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I realized that in real time. Sorry, Kyle. And look, Kyle's middle-aged and she's still doing it too.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't even think that she's doing it.
No, it's a survival technique. Again,
totally.
It's like, no, we don't know we're doing it. We're just trying to like not get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And Reba is real capable of some nasty behavior. She all through this, you know how I've always said like Sutton is my dad, and I was like, oh my God, Reba is my dad. All of her bullshit, which in the course of a 1 hour episode, it doesn't probably feel like a lot to people who haven't experienced it. But if you've had this person in your life, I totally understand why Sutton was like sighing and shifting and uncomfortable, because it's just 100% relentless questioning, criticism. But it's not direct criticism. It's like, why are these spoons in here? What time are you leaving? Blah, blah, blah. It's just constant like, you're doing something wrong, and I'm going to ask questions till I figure out what the fuck it is. And then I'm going to light into you. And
when you're the child of that, like even when you're an adult child of that, you always make that critical parent, they're the BL, like they are the expert on you. You're not the expert on yourself. They're the expert on you. So you're like, oh my God, I am a mess. I am a child. I'm not good enough. I am not worthy of this person's approval. I'm doing things wrong. I am a failure.
Well, and Avi gets an ass load of that when he enters the scene and says, will you be joining us for brunch? And instead of saying, sure, she goes, brunch? I thought it was breakfast. And he is like, you see him take a deep breath and go, well, it was pushed to brunch. And she goes, yes, I see that. It's just nothing is just, it's a meal. Relax, have a snack. And like, why is this is like where my like child of an alcoholic stuff got triggered, where I was like, can't you just say, okay, why do you have to make a big deal about a 2-hour difference between breakfast and brunch? Your family's visiting. You're welcome. Oh my God. Like, it just made me so insane. And the whole episode, every opportunity she gets, she's like, yes, I see that. It's always some shitty comment instead of just go with it. Nobody's doing this to you. Brunch is happening instead of breakfast, which is like a 2-hour difference. Have a scone and calm down. Oh my God. Honestly.
Why don't you eat a piece of bread and calm down? Yeah, totally. That's a Kim Richards reference.
Oh, right.
Just in case anyone forgot or isn't aware. That's
she
Kim.
has a point.
Another alcoholic.
Yeah.
On Bravo. That triggered things in me at the time.
Avi suggests that Reba, this was a misfire. But again, you just don't, when you're dealing with a person of that personality type, you just don't get any leeway. Avi suggests that Reba go gets dressed for a proper brunch. And she goes, well, I am fully dressed right now, and I don't want to do that. And she takes her little blue watering can and dodders out the door. I was like, oh my God, everything is unpleasant. Everything is unpleasant.
It's the eggshells. It's everybody. Sutton, Avi.
Kyle in her own way.
For sure. Garcelle, again, we'll get there, but I don't know if she was walking on eggshells.
No, but she managed that. I was like, that's how you do it. That's, if you're a person in recovery, that's what it can look like.
My God. Kyle and Sutton are upstairs getting glam, and Kyle has the fucking audacity. And I firmly believe she was coming from a place of wanting to hurt Sutton. She says, I was talking to your mom. She's great. And I don't think that Kyle is like skilled enough in nuanced thinking or empathetic kind of thinking to put together that Reba is going to treat Kyle differently than she treats her own daughter, which is what everyone does. You know, like I don't treat everyone the same way I treat Leo. It's a different relationship. It's also a more intimate relationship that I have with him, or it's just like Sutton has all this history with her mom.
That's the thing, is to say she's so great. It's like, and I just wrote, I hate that. And I talked about that on this podcast before. When you know I have issues with my parent and you say, he's wonderful, I don't see what the problem is. He's charismatic. He's hilarious. We had a great time. I'm like, okay, well, congratulations on knowing him for 10 fucking minutes, dude.
Yeah.
Try. And you can feel in Sutton the 50 plus years of history. It's not just that Reba said, who put spoons in the freezer? I don't like that, Eyes. It's 50 years of like, you're doing it wrong. You've done it wrong. You've disappointed me. You're shameful. You feel the weight. At least I do. Because again, I'm projecting because that's what this podcast is about and how I watch these shows.
Yep.
But Kyle saying just blanket, she's so great. And Sutton, very restrained, says, yep, she's very interesting. And I was like, Kyle, you ass. Sutton invited you here because she wanted support with regard to her mother. And for you to be like, I don't get it. What's wrong? She's great. We had a great conversation. She told me everything. We're best friends. What's your problem? You have the problem. She's great.
She did exactly what Reba does. You're absolutely right, Margee. It just reeked. She was just teeming with that energy that said, that subtext that said, oh my God, Sutton, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what are you talking about? Again, she is pathologizing Sutton. You're the fucking problem. Reba's great.
Or even to me, I always read it as it's just self-centered. It's like, you're not thinking about me when you say that. You're thinking about my experience was great. I love her. She's nice to me. It's like, are you forgetting all of the history and the backstory that I gave you to warn you about this event?
Yeah.
I didn't make that up. You had a good encounter and I'm so fucking relieved because then I don't have to apologize for the rest of my life for putting you in the line of fire. But like, don't just assume that your experience is the only way to experience this person. So I hated Kyle for a second, and then I appreciated this question when she asked Sutton, how long was your dad not well for? And that, to me, is how we should be discussing depression or any mental illness, anxiety, any of it. I wrote this whole diatribe about addressing depression as an illness. And I'll just mention this little piece because I mentioned how I correlate depression and cancer. Like we should think of these illnesses in the same way. And my friend who just recently passed from cancer, when he went into hospice care, his worst fear was that people would think he'd given up. He was like, I don't want to tell people that I'm going into palliative care because they're going to think I gave up. And I just remember saying, like, this part of your story is not in your control anymore. Like, you did everything you can do. Cancer doesn't bend to wills. There are no bootstraps to pick yourself up by that cancer abides. And I think it's vital that people come to terms with the fact that the same is true for depression. Some people get a terminal case. And Lord knows Gavin explored every type of treatment available, immunotherapy, chemo, radiation, surgery. He did everything available, everything. And I encourage everyone with depression to do the absolute same. And then to let go of the burden of being the one to determine your own outcome, you know? Anyways.
I had forgotten about Sutton's origin story. I had forgotten about this devastating, heartbreaking tragedy that shaped the rest of her life. I can't imagine. You know, she's been my problematic fave, and this episode did not help me get over that at all.
I was thinking of you. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell Ramona that, like, in this episode, she has my whole heart.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, yeah, he left this mortal coil after Sutton, you know, explains in her confessional how it led up to that. Kyle says she's lucky to have her mom. She says that in her confessional, and I just think Kyle's a fucking monster. I think she's a fucking monster. She's a fucking monster, man.
Death doula training, that's literally the worst thing you can say to someone who's grieving because they are not of a piece. Like, gratitude for one thing does not eradicate grief of another, you know? So saying when someone's mourning the loss of something to say like, yeah, but be grateful for, it's like, thank you. That's true. That one thing you just said is true. And it does nothing to diminish my experience of this loss. So Kyle's just, God, she's all off every mark here, man.
Every mark.
Yeah.
We go back to the kitchen. There's more criticizing of Avi. She does compliment Garcelle, though. Garcelle says in her confessional that after meeting Reba's the tree and Sutton's the apple. I don't think I co-sign with that 100%. I can see why Garcelle's saying that. I just think it's more complicated than just chalking it up to that little adage.
Yeah, but you really do see so much of the same paper. When they ran back Sutton's stuff, we literally just watched Reba go, you know, Avi goes, can I make you a drink? And she goes, what do you have? Would you like a vodka lemonade? No. It's just like so unhelpful and awful. And then we see a run back of Sutton doing just the same shit, critical and impossible to please, and everything is wrong. And, you know, and even Avi earlier was like, I don't want to set the table for breakfast until Sutton's down here. He told Garcelle that, and she was like, right, we'll wait. Because everyone knows. Talk about eggshells. The eggshells that is generational trauma. Nobody's properly been to therapy. Even though her mom is a therapist, that blew my mind.
It blew my mind as well.
Yes.
I was shocked and taken aback wildly.
And Garcelle does qualify, like the apple falls right from the tree, doesn't fall far from the tree, by saying they're both a little awkward, but somehow lovable. So I was like, oh, Garcelle, you're nice.
And then there was a little bit more microaggression when...
What the
I know, when she tells Garcelle, well, you're not English, that's for sure. Like, what the hell does that...
Again, it was one of those things that I was like, I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't feel well.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to make you feel well.
Yeah.
Unless you've got other problems.
Then we're with Garcelle and Reba on the porch with their drinks, and Garcelle is so lovely. She launches with compliments, saying she loves Sutton for her generosity and selflessness, and that she got that from you, Reba. And she explains that she's had deep conversations with Sutton, and we flash back to that heartbreaking confession where Sutton says, I know my mom loves me. I just don't feel like she likes me. And I don't think I've ever made her proud or happy as a daughter. And Garcelle explains that Sutton is proud of how far she's come, and she would just love to hear her mom say that she's proud of her and that she loves her. And by this point, RHOBH is dead behind the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And she just leans in and goes, I don't think that's any of your business. I was like, oh my God. She goes, I don't want to insult you. I just think you have no clue. And I was like, but you insulted her. And oh my God, it just is so cutting, everything about it. It's so intense. But Garcelle, to her credit, is just breathes it. And she's like, you're right. I haven't lived with you or grown up with her. I was just coming as a caring friend. And then RHOBH's defensive and weird. And she's like, oh, you're the messenger or whatever. But Garcelle explains that she's coming to RHOBH as a member of the Dead Moms Club. And she's like, I don't have a mom. And so I just want to facilitate Sutton's relationship with hers. If there's anything I can do while everybody's here, I'd like to be a part of that. RHOBH seems to not soften, but as much as someone like her can. She says like, yeah, death is final, isn't it? And I was like, ooh, she got her. Garcelle's message landed.
Yeah.
Because she said something not defensive or critical. And with an alcoholic or with a personality type of this nature, with a non-nurturing cancer, that's as deep as it gets. If they're not defensive and if their tone is even lightly gentle, you did it. Success.
I really liked the way they ended this conversation. I felt like by the end of it, RHOBH seemed as gracious as she can be. And again, like watching Garcelle not apologize. She was kind. She understood the unspoken limits that RHOBH was giving her. But she never made anything. Garcelle never took it out on herself, what RHOBH was saying. I would have, well, maybe I wouldn't at this point, but I know beyond the shadow of a doubt I would have received what RHOBH was telling me, just like Sutton receives what RHOBH tells her. That's absolutely what would have happened. And watching Garcelle just be Garcelle and not make it about her being herself being wrong. Oh, it was so, I loved seeing it. It was beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
And not giving RHOBH a reaction somehow made RHOBH available to this conversation all of a sudden.
You're right, Margee.
It's like in Al-Anon, they talk about everybody is entitled to the dignity of their own experience. And I've just watched Garcelle do that, where this one was like, that's none of your business. You don't have a clue. And Garcelle was like, you are entitled to the dignity of your experience. That is true. I don't know exactly what your experience. So let me explain where I'm coming from. I don't have a mom, and it's all I ever think about and all I want. Sutton has a mom, and I'd love for her to be able to have some closeness with her while everybody's present and functional. So that's it. This is amazing. Right. And then Sutton calls him in to eat, and RHOBH's like, well, we've only been waiting since 8 o'clock. And I was like, Jesus Christ, everything's wrong. You're my dad.
Yep. And then Garcelle's insight at the end of this, when she's in her confessional at the end of this scene, I felt like it was so spot on. Like Sutton had a relationship with her dad that she didn't have with her mom, and her mom was jealous. I can absolutely see that being true. 100%.
And then everybody sits for breakfast, and Junebug barks at RHOBH, which made me laugh. Beautiful flowers in this episode. All over the place. This was a beautiful arrangement that they had to move because it was so big. This was a moment I wondered if you noticed if this is something of people with a eating disorder, when Garcelle pointed out that Kyle hadn't eaten any of her grits yet. And I was like, God, I hate it. Just
100% I noticed that.
It makes everybody uncomfortable. And I've had people comment on how much or how little I eat, and it's all terrible. Just keep your eyes on your own plate and shut the fuck up about it.
Exactly.
And also I understand when there's silence at a table with a personality like RHOBH, you just want to make noise. So maybe Garcelle was just trying to make some sound so that there wasn't room for yelling.
That is a very good point.
And also eat the grits, Kyle. You're in the South. It's just a little butter and cornmeal. Settle down. They're good.
After you're done saying don't comment, but yes,
Right.
I totally get it. I know.
See, but this is why you stay in recovery. This is why you're never done.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with Kyle's eating. That has to do with me not liking Kyle. So I was just finding a way to be a dick.
You're right. I was too. We're going to be honest here. Only as sick as your secrets, man. Sutton she tells Reba that she's taking everyone to see her childhood home where her dad completed suicide in a very violent way. And in her confessional, she shares how, like what Margee said at the beginning, her dad was in a bad place with his meds, with his moods, with his drinking, and there happened to be access to a firearm. And her mom knew this and didn't do anything to prevent it. And Sutton is resentful. And I think it is human nature to want to blame someone for tragedy. You need to make sense of something that is so unsensible, like what? I think it's appropriate to blame like legitimate perpetrators for traumas they've caused. But when Sutton was talking about being resentful at her mom, I totally understood it. I had empathy, I had sympathy, and it reminded me of that saying in Al-Anon, I didn't cause it, I can't cure it, and I can't control it. Like you said, it was going to happen eventually. And I'm sorry that Sutton doesn't see that, truly. But I understood where she was coming from.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that Reba doesn't carry that same
Guilt.
I'm sure that she's not unaware of if there was something that could have been done, it would have been removing the gun from the equation. But again, I'm convinced based on the years that man was suffering and not being properly treated, I don't believe there was another outcome unless there'd been a different kind of intervention, which I don't know if that kind of thing was available in that era in the South. I just don't know if anyone knew what the fuck to do. Like, we're so lucky now that there's so much truly useful, remarkable medical intervention. And even so, there are still cases where people don't make it. So yeah, that broke my heart.
It did.
But you can feel the trauma for all of them. Like when Sutton says, I'm going to take, these girls to see that childhood house. And Sutton goes, it's right around the corner. And Reba goes, it is right around the corner. And I was just like, oh God, that's so loaded. And then Sutton said, we're going to go inside the house. And Reba goes, no, we're not going inside. Somebody lives there. And Sutton says, well, we'll ring the doorbell. And my favorite Southern expression, oh, horrors, no. Both Sutton and Reba are right. They're speaking about the same thing. It's all this vague language about ringing a doorbell or going inside or not. But they're both, the point of that visit is exactly the point of that visit. And they both know it. And Reba's not going to have any fucking part of it. And I don't blame her. I don't know how anyone deals with all of this.
I can't pretend to know. I cannot pretend to know.
And going back
not.
to the place with your daughter, and Sutton says, as they, clean up and get ready to go to the house, she says, I'll give you a full report. And Reba goes, I don't want one. And just walks the fuck away. And yeah, her grief and her guilt must be overwhelming.
And at the end of, Sutton's confessional, she said her mom has not tried to deal with this at all. And she tears up and says, that's a lot I just said. Oh, I was real proud of her for being honest. We're only as sick as our secrets. What is the Fred Rogers saying, the Mr. Rogers saying?
Yeah, anything that is shared loses the power of terror over us.
Oh, my God. Live it.
And I really appreciated Sutton's language. Like she said, he killed himself. He shot himself. Like she's not doing he passed, he lost his life. It's like she's really being as clear as she can. And I think that's such a service to people who've experienced this kind of loss. Everyone wants to tiptoe around it, but it's like, that is what happened. Those are the facts. And it's devastating. And that's what made my heart break open for Sutton, where I was like, kind of like, if you're not in regular therapy, of course you drink. I don't know how you go to a dance concert, come home, get that news, and then if you're not in intensive therapy all the time, I don't know. I don't know how else you make it through.
And I know we've come a long way from season 1, maybe even episode 1 of The Real Housewives of Orange County. Like, I totally understand and really appreciate the beginnings of these franchises. I really love that. But the fact that we've come this far to now, this is what we're talking about. The Housewives have evolved. And the fact that it is absolutely possible and happening, obviously, to you and me, that we can also supplement our own respective recoveries through these shows and through these women. Who knew? I appreciate both. I appreciate both aspects of these shows.
Well, it's our whole thesis of like, it is not trash TV. I just don't, for me, it's never been, because I'm looking at someone speaking an experience I relate to, or an example of someone who is trying to bypass pain and becoming a terrible person as a result. So,
oh my God, yes.
Speaking of which, Erica FaceTimes Dorit.
Yeah.
To show off her fucking design changes in her cabana. I'm sorry, but she shows the new paint in the hallway, which to me looks like an institution. It looks like prison. It's like white paint with 2 black lines running horizontal. I was like, that's what institution hallways look like. I don't understand why we're losing our mind over this. Martin Lawrence Bullard he's really just staying within his $3,700 budget, $37,000 budget. Anyways. And then Erica plays victim, and I can't stand it, saying she was such under intense scrutiny that she couldn't spend anything she made. And I was like, well, maybe just pay back some of the extreme excess to the people it was stolen from first, and then go buck wild. Why does it have to be one or the other?
It was disgusting. I was disgusted.
I just can't feel happy for her.
I can't either. When she's like, there were people that said I didn't deserve to have money or nice things. It's like, yeah, dude, restitution first.
And also, they weren't saying that. They weren't saying you don't deserve nice things. They were saying, can we have those $1 million earrings back? Because they were bought with money that was meant to treat my burns.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't saying you can't have anything nice. You need to suffer. Nobody said that. They said you have something that is not rightfully yours, and we're appealing to your conscience, to your morality. And
that's such a
she
good
has
point.
None.
You're right.
No one was
You're
calling
right.
for her to like live in a gutter. They were
I
just
was.
saying, but I mean, but it wouldn't solve anything.
You're right.
Her living in a gutter doesn't, it's just give the earrings back. Like literally that was it. She could have been a fucking hero with a pair of earrings that I never see her wear. And instead they just sit in a box somewhere instead of other people getting skin grafts. Congratulations on your stupid cabana.
Exactly.
But then she got to the part that I was, again, glad for this stuff being spoken about on television. She talked about her depression after 4 or 5 years of hell, she called it. She said she's excited about life again, and that's a signal to herself that she's returning back to normal. Not returned, like you slowly make your way back to a place you lightly recognize. Depression isn't a light switch. It's a fucking slow-ass dimmer. It's a dimmer that takes you down, and then when you're in the pitch black, you're like, fuck, it's pitch black in here. And it's a dimmer to come all the way back up. And I appreciated her acknowledgement of that she is slowly returning to normal. And as much as I don't care for her design or how it was paid for, you can see how she was genuinely appreciative of like, this little thing is energizing me. Little. To the rest of us, it would be huge. But to her, she's like, this $37,000 expense is brightening my day a little. And those are the things coming out of depression that like, I've been, that's what I've learned in therapy is to focus on, if anything brings a spark of recognition of who you were or want to be back, you indulge as long as you can there. Enjoy it, So.
Margee, you're absolutely right. Like when I start coming out of a depressive episode, that palpable relief I feel like, oh, I want to put on makeup. I want to take a shower. I want to feed myself a proper meal. I want to see friends. And you start to get in touch with your true essence again. You're right. You're right. Okay, Erica, I can relate to that. All right.
Yeah. And again, there's no rushing our way back to that place. It's like, because I remember those feelings too, and it doesn't all happen at once. It's like suddenly I'm in the shower and I'm like, "Oh, you're in the shower. Oh my God, you're in the shower. Good girl, good girl. Like this is so good for you." And then you go back to bed for 3 days and then it's like, "Oh my God, you put a green on your plate. Oh my God." And it's like all those little things. And that's what pulls you out of it. And then suddenly you're a whole person again and you forgot that like arugula was a cause for celebration once.
Oh God, you're so
Now
right,
it's just
man.
a part of your regular diet again. But
yeah.
it's really, they say the pain is in the resistance, right? So
Goddamn.
it's me wanting it to be fixed overnight that makes the condition not better. So anyways.
Then we pivot to Bose and Lael. And Bose, in her confessional, says, we're really tight. It's been her and I for 10 years. And what I do affects her and what she does affects me. And there's no one else. And I said, my heart sang when I see parents treating their children like real, whole people to be taken seriously, to see the embodiment of acknowledging that Lael is a person too. God, just fucking loved it, man. I just loved it. I loved it.
They're adorable. They talk about Keeley, and Lael says she wasn't sure how long they were dating initially because Bose had called him a friend and then, quote, gave me eyebrows. And so she wasn't sure when that relationship actually got underway. And I was like, that's cute. And then the next piece of information, I was like, that's weird. We find out that Lael first met Keeley when he spontaneously showed up in Ghana. And I was like, that's intrusive. Like, even if you have business in Ghana, if your girlfriend's daughter is there, I don't know. I've dated men with children before, and it's always like a big, long discussion of when and how do you meet these, like you said, these whole human beings who have an existence that matters. You don't just like pop in and be like, hey, I'm going to hug your dad. Like it's a lot for a kid to make sense of. And so I just thought that was a weird move by Keeley to be like, you know what? I'm going to fly out of the country where you are with your daughter and then to find out that they've not said I love you. It's just like, what is going on exactly? What is this? Maybe he had other business there, but it didn't sound like it. It literally sounded like, I know Bose and her daughter are in Ghana and I'm going to get a ticket and go there too. It's weird. Maybe I'm too sensitive. I don't know.
Bose shares with Lael that she and Keeley's relationship is evolving in a surprising way for all of us. They need to decide if they're going to have a child sooner rather than later. And Lael is okay with that. And Bose wants to know why, which I fucking loved it. I was just like, yes. And she wants to know why, and in her own words. And Lael says, I'll be leaving and you won't have a kid to raise anymore. And Bose asks, do you want me to have a kid because you're afraid I'm going to be lonely? And she says, no, I think our bond is changing, but not in a bad way. It's in an evolving way. And now I want you to share that bond with someone else. And the insight, children are capable of this. And if their parents live the kind of honesty and don't hide things from their children, the emotional intelligence and depth and vocabulary that your kids are capable of having themselves, it shocked Bose. She was shocked by Lael's response. Like, she doesn't know how she came to this. And I was like, hello, partly because of you. There's nature and there's nurture. I loved that scene. I loved it.
Yeah, I was awed by her maturity as well to like have that perspective of like, I want you to share that bond with someone else. And now we're growing into a new bond. We're going to be friends and adults instead of mom and kid. So anyways, it was beautiful. And then she asks about how she feels about Keeley, and Bose is like, I guess that's backwards, asking about how you'd feel about a baby before finding out how you feel about Keeley. But, she's doing a lot of things backwards. That relationship, not having I love you on the table as they discuss marriage and kids. Maybe that's just a middle-aged way of doing things. But
I think it might be. I think it might be like after you do things, quote unquote, the right way or the typical way or the way that society says this is the order you need to do these things in. It's like I feel like the older you get, the more you know, at least for me, it's like, oh, shit doesn't look the way I thought it would. It doesn't happen the way I think it should or the way it's supposed to, in quotes. I thought it was refreshing to see that. And it also, you know, like who says? Who says?
The only thing that bugs me about it is that it's so clear Bose wants to hear it and she's unwilling to talk to him about it. And that makes me feel like something's off. You just have to have the conversation like Sutton has with her mom where she's like, it's overused. It's like, oh, well, if that's your philosophy on it, then I guess I see why you don't readily say it. But Bose is aching for Keeley to say, I love you. She's been on the verge of saying it herself. And it makes me feel yucky that she's not comfortable telling him that. That's a very happy moment in a relationship when you exchange that news. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's weird to withhold that if you're feeling it. So I just feel a little sad for Bose that she's not getting that affirmation. It's a big deal.
If it helps at all, I watched the after show and she said that they say I love you to each other all the time now.
Yeah,
so,
I believe it.
Yeah. That made me happy for her.
Yeah.
That I saw her say that. So we pivot back to Augusta. And the first thing that struck me about this scene is when Kyle says, I'm obsessed with your mom. Like they're leaving the house. I'm obsessed with your mom.
I didn't even hear that.
Up,
girl.
Shut up, Kyle. She is just willfully, in my opinion, she's willfully missing the point of this trip. Sutton has specifically set the tone before they left. I am going to deal with my mom because it's complicated, and I don't want it to be complicated while she's still with us, while she's still with me. And so for Kyle to say, like, I'm obsessed with your mom, it was foul, man. Like, she's such an example of, you know, of terminal uniqueness. You know, she's the one that can see the good in Reba and who Reba feels bonded with on this trip. And I thought it was cruel and unnecessary. And to use that, the young people term, it was so fucking pick me, man. It was disgusting.
I mean, it's her just trying to bypass her own grief. Like you really see in this car ride to the home, Garcelle in a confessional says she's concerned about this part of the trip because it's the last place that Sutton saw her dad. And then we cut into the car and Sutton's getting teary and Kyle, annoyed, is like, what, are you changing your mind? And I was like, are you kidding me right now with that question? Like, have a little patience. It's called grief, you asshole. Like, it doesn't abide by your schedule, Kyle. I was crying and I don't know Sutton or that home in Augusta or what happened in it. Like, when someone is carrying that much emotion, set yours the fuck aside for the car ride. And no, she's not changing her mind. And also, what an aggressive question to ask. Like, she really, just the juxtaposition of Garcelle being like, I'm worried for my friend for this moment in time. And Kyle being like, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? I was like, oh my God, I can't.
Was repulsive and repugnant.
She is just not the person to bring on an emotional adventure.
Oh
she
my
is
God.
Just, if it's not about her, it can't be about you.
Vile.
And then we get to Sutton's childhood home, and the homeowners are so nice. Mm-hmm. This is where the South is wonderful. They welcome them in, and they tell them to take their time and won't hear any apologies for tears. They're just like very sweet people who, I don't know if they understood the purpose of this errand, but anyone coming to visit a childhood home, whether a traumatic event such as Sutton's happened or not, that's an emotional errand.
Absolutely.
It just is.
You can just see how terrified she is. I mean, she says, it's just a house. And I'm like, no, it's not just a house. This is a representation of this thing that happened in your life that changed you forever.
Well, and as Sutton said earlier, it's so complex because it was a home full of wonderful memories until December 23rd, 2002.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she says in her confessional that this is sort of a last step in her healing journey around her father. She wants to say goodbye, Oh, and now I'm going to cry. She says, I loved him so much and miss him every day. And again, you know, I have trouble with Sutton, but in that moment I was like, I want to reach for the screen and give you a hug. Like,
I want to be the opposite of Kyle for you.
yeah.
I want to be a real friend and I don't even fucking know you in real life.
Thank God Garcelle. Garcelle is just doing everything right on this trip. Like, so supportive, so present. And they go through the house and, you know, and then there's that moment in the room that Sutton's father designed and built where Garcelle is weeping with her just because it's fucking impactful. And Kyle looks like agitated and like ready to go for another run or like get another Starbucks. She's just so not there for her friend.
She wants to escape those feelings.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's stark because the support that Garcelle is giving her friend Sutton that she accepts warts and all, that when she does have criticism for Sutton, it's done with love, you know, and acceptance. Like, okay, that's Suttoning, you know. And, oh, that's inspiring, A. B, her support is effortless. She doesn't have to work to support her friend. This is just coming from her true essence. And Kyle just wants to run, which I understand because she runs and runs and she literally runs and she runs with her, just the way she lives her life. And she won't just sit still in what Sutton is doing, which is work and facing
credit, like you were saying, Garcelle is a friend who accepts her warts and all. And to Sutton's credit, she doesn't flinch when someone like Garcelle brings up her flaws, or when someone like Jennifer Tilly is like, yeah, she is reactive and out of control. And like, that's a good description of her. Remember when Jennifer Tilly weighed in on her behavior at the Denim and Diamonds party or whatever? And she was like, yeah, she's nuts. So, and Sutton doesn't drop these friends or cut them out. It's just like they see her and she gets it and they just move on because they're friends and nobody's expected to be perfect or flawless. It's just, you know. And Sutton had some interesting reflections on her dad. She says she was lucky enough to be a daddy's girl. And then she described their relationship as he didn't say a lot, but he liked her being around him, which I thought was actually really sweet. It's kind of like a dog, you know? But it's true. It's like I never got the feeling that my dad liked being around me.
No.
I always felt like I was in his space and kind of a pain in the ass. So
at best.
There's something really lovely about, like, even though they didn't talk a lot, there was just a comfort and joy in each other's presence. And she said, this broke my heart too. She loved being in the kitchen with him and he loved having her there when he was making chili. And then she said when he died, the food went from this like homemade, thoughtful, slow cooked shit to fish sticks, which, you know, I imagine it was the best her mom could manage in the midst of such a tragedy. But it was extra painful for little Sutton in her grief because she said it went from really great food to really terrible food, which is just analogous to her life in that moment. It went from really great to really terrible. And then she said, I love the scrambled egg sandwiches he made on white bread with mayo. And that inspired me to make one. I made this like scrambled eggs with like brioche toast, white cheddar, sriracha mayo, and arugula. So obviously I'm not in a deep depression if there's a green on it. And it was great.
Excuse me, Jones on Third for breakfast. Excuse me.
But thank you. Sutton's an ode to Sutton's dad.
Love
because
it.
I was like, that does sound delicious. I don't know who's poo-pooing that sandwich. It sounds great.
Then they move into the family room, and she says, this is the last spot where I saw my dad alive. And she remembers saying goodbye to him. She tugged on his toe. They had this unspoken way of communicating their love for each other. If they were both in the family room and she was leaving, he would put his hand out and she would slap it in a way to say goodbye, like a high five. And she said that night he was out of it and he didn't do their normal hand thing. And that's why she grabbed his toe. And that was the last time she saw him alive. And she feels guilty that she didn't sit with him for even 5 minutes that night. And she couldn't go into that room for months afterwards. And I just want to tell Sutton, like, 5 more minutes wouldn't have stopped him from doing what he was going to do. And not that she was coming from a place that, like, if I had just been there for 5 more minutes, I think that that's coming from a place of, like, just wanting that 5 more minutes that Garcelle talks about in regards to her mom. But, I really just hope that Sutton I hope she's not burdened by guilt about this. Anyway.
I mean, she seems like everything is pretty right-sized, like being in that space, the vivid way she describes that moment, heading out to her last dance performance, getting a bottle of wine for the after party, passing through, noticing, she said he was real sick, very out of it, and he died the next day. She was plugged in, and I get it. Anyone who's no longer here, I would beg everyone, we would all trade anything for 5 more minutes with that person. And even though he'd been sick for years, it's not even like this was a sudden, he got torn off the earth in a car accident. It's just, you just want 5 more minutes because you love them, and it just feels incomplete forever without them. But she didn't dwell there. She basically moved on to some empathy for her mom. She's like, I think my mom has had a rough go of it since her dad's death and probably before he died. She wants for RHOBH to have a chapter now that's happy and peaceful and fun and not strained. And she says, she means a lot to me and I want to make things right. Things have not been right since my father died. And to me, that just feels like what a gorgeous evolution and experience of all of the feelings and landing in the right place, which is in the present. The sticky part about grief is getting stuck in the past and just getting stuck wishing it weren't so and wishing it to be different. But Sutton did a beautiful job of passing through that place, visiting it and being like, God, I wish I would give anything for 5 more minutes. There are not 5 more minutes to be had. What's here now? My mom. Let me work on getting things right with her.
Wow. I mean, she's doing what I don't know if I can do. I think I've talked about it before. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that.
It's not fucking easy. Like
No.
that's not an instinctive move. Like
No.
she's done some work clearly to be able to be in that space and like cry appropriately and relive it appropriately. And as she said, like, let it go, say goodbye. And she said, she's like, this was like years of therapy that I didn't have to pay for. And I was like, all right.
And see, I was like, dude, you have so much money to pay for therapy.
But
Like
she may have been going at least around grief.
Oh, I really hope so.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to talk about the death of a parent, let alone the suicide of a parent in the space where it happened when I was in my 20s. I still get riled up talking about my broken engagement from my 20s. You know what I mean? It's like, this is so intense. Or maybe she's just sort of like, maybe it's the Southern piece of her that's like.
I mean, we also in this scene, we're like, she copes.
Truth.
She
Yes.
copes. Like when she's in her regular day-to-day life, where she's not confronting things that she is, I do believe that she is experiencing some closure, and I do believe that she is experiencing some, to an extent, what she wanted to achieve with her mom. I do see that those things they exist. Like I think she got what she wanted. To an extent.
The best possible outcome with a character like RHOBH. That's all you can ask for is someone to say like, I'm willing to get on a plane.
You're right.
It's like, yay.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't know if Sutton's been to therapy or not. And I do have to remind myself that and I'm only saying I have to remind myself about Sutton with this because I have done it before where it's not a secret that we've seen Sutton's relationship with alcohol. I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. And it's not a relationship with alcohol that makes me feel safe necessarily. But it's like sometimes it's so seductive and tempting to like when there's been some positive movement with the person that is capable of hurting you the most. And they show you for a brief minute that they are capable of giving you the things that you think you want from them. It's so easy to take a little tiny bit of that and have it just like obliterate all of the hurts in the past, and you forget that they're capable of disappointing you. And then when they do it again, because inevitably they do, It's just devastating. So
well, I worry about that because
me too.
I know Reba agreed to come to the fashion show, but my first thought when Sutton was so relieved, I was like, don't fuck, she's not there
That's
yet.
exactly.
She didn't buy a fucking ticket yet, dude. And she didn't commit. She said, I think I might make that happen. It just isn't enough until there's a ticket and her ass is in the seat in LA. It's just like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. But that's my trauma I'm protecting.
All of this is my trauma that I'm, yes.
Yes. I'm so skittish about any commitment from someone of that personality type. It just, they're so volatile. And so if you say the wrong thing or break a rule that you didn't know was in place, they won't come and you'll be punished and they'll know it and they're fine with it.
So on their way out of the house, Kyle says, that was a lot more than I expected it to be. Are you fucking kidding me?
What did you expect? Oh my God.
If this was Kyle going to her childhood home, we would have already sat through at least 2 to 3 episodes of her gearing up to go, of listening to her gear up to go. And then she would weaponize it against her castmates. Like, do you realize how hard that was for me? Do you realize I need grace right now after what I just did? It would be a whole fucking season arc with Kyle leading up to do something that Sutton just did. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
This should have been Jennifer Tilly on this trip. This was a mismatch. And then we go to Bose, Erica, and Dorit having a dinner. And Bose explains that she and Keeley talk about marriage and having a baby, but they have never yet said, I love you. And I was with Dorit on this. Dorit suggests saying to Keeley, isn't it weird that we haven't said I love you yet? And we're family planning and talking about getting married. And everyone's like, oh, don't do that. Don't play the game. Don't be the first to say it. And I'm like, when do you fucking outgrow that? Bose is 47 years old. When do you stop with like, he has to say it? It's like, and this is where we were talking about this before. I just think Bose isn't ready to ask the question because if she doesn't get the answer she wants, she doesn't want to leave the relationship, you know? And I fully fucking get that. She's talked about it before. It's not an easy feat to be in your 40s in Los Angeles and find someone you like spending time with. So maybe she just doesn't want to like twist the screws at this point, but I also was not interested in these adult women being like, you don't say it first. It's like, if you want to hear it, say it. And if you don't hear it back, that's really important information for you to have about the status of your relationship. And I don't care about like, well, if he says it back, he'll say it because he feels obligated. You'll know. You know, you've been in enough love relationships to know when someone's saying I love you because they want to shut you up or get something from you versus when they say I love you because they love you. I was not impressed with this feedback from her girlfriends.
Yeah. And then right in her confessional, oh God, I was so blown away by this. She said, I am acting on the belief that he loves me. I know he's going to say the words, we know we love each other. So why not talk about her future? And I was like, is that really mature and evolved? Or is it naive? Or is it both? And does it fucking matter? Like, I was in so much agony, you know, when I was like still out there dating. I had people telling me, sponsors, friends, Ramona, there's nothing you can do to fuck this up if you are meant to be together. What I'm saying is if I had said I love you first and it ended up ending, it wasn't going to be because I said I love you first. It was going to be because it was ending for some way, because it wasn't supposed to be for whatever reason. And I also was told, go by someone's actions, not by their words. And for everything we've seen, Keeley is really showing up for her. Do you know what she said in the after show? When he was coming to take her to surgery, they share each other's location so she could see that he was near her house. But he didn't come in, so she kept watching. He did a test drive to the surgery center so that in the morning there wouldn't be any kind of hiccup. That's loving, I think. In my opinion, that's a loving action.
For sure. Like I said, the only thing that bothers me about it is that it bothers Bose. She wants to hear it. And she is finding a workaround, and I'm also fine with that. Like having a companion and finding a workaround for something that you want that isn't available right now is a relatable and reasonable thing to do. but it's just so clear how much she aches to hear those words. And so she's made peace with not, but if I were her friend, I would say, it's so clear you want to hear these words. And I understand if you don't want to initiate this, but it breaks my heart that you're not getting everything you want because you deserve everything you want. And I agree. He's a loving guy and he takes loving action. And she's a woman who would like to hear those words. So,
and they have been together for 8 months. That's what we learn in her conversation with Lael, that, they've been together for 8 months. Yeah.
And he flew to Ghana and he's taken her to surgery. Like, what is the problem?
I don't know.
And that's
a good
to me
point.
where I'd want to just have the conversation and be like, I love you. And it would mean everything to hear those words back. Is there something holding you back? Mm-hmm. And maybe there's this deep story there where he doesn't say, I love you because of X, Y, Z, but that's how you get to know each other better. It's not by like playing the game and waiting for blah, blah, blah. It's like in your 40s, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no.
Mm-hmm. So then Dorit tells them that she talked to PK. And when they were talking, it was just like we were friends. And Erica and Bose are immediately like, I smell a rat. This is a trap. She said during the course of this call that she recognized the father of their children. She told him that he needs to slow down for the sake of their kids. This can't be a war. And Bose says, this is not about the kids. You need him to slow down so you can catch your breath. And then Dorit said something that I thought was pretty, it was a good perspective. Like, Dorit agrees, but she says, listen, catching my breath is about the kids. I felt that. I could understand that. I know that Dorit needs to put on her own air mask first. I totally understand that. But I also understand that feeling like she has a reliable relationship with PK, that where they're communicating with kindness, regardless of what happens, that's going to help her feel settled about the kids. I got it.
I get it, but I think what Bose and Erica are trying to tell her is if you're concerned about the kids, you got to look at the bigger picture. Last week, we heard a report of a 7-page email he sent her saying, fuck you, I'm suing you for divorce, fuck mediation. If you don't meet these demands, pay every inch of the house that we couldn't afford when both of us were contributing. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm going to ruin you. And then a phone call. Hey, baby, I'm sorry. I know this has been hard on you. What they're saying, Bose says, this is a trick. And it's not a moment of respite. It's part of PK's plan to do exactly what I've been saying all along and what Bose says. He is going around to every law firm in town that's any good. He is poisoning all counsel so they cannot represent Dorit. She will have insufficient representation. And in my opinion, that hurts the kids. So if your goal is to protect and take care of your kids, get a fucking lawyer. Don't take a breath. I'm so sorry there's not time for one right now. Bose described it perfectly. This is the art of war. You were a cornered animal and he is afraid that you are going to strike. And so what he's doing is calming you down so he can batter you the second you show signs of remission, of retreat. And it's true and it's gross. And that is divorce. And I appreciated both of the women at that table trying to get Dorit to understand that yours will not be different. PK, Erica said it. He's brutal in business. He will be brutal in the business of divorce. And this is part of that. Dorit goes, you think this is a game? And Bose just goes, yes, wake up. And I appreciated that directness because I've been the person blinded by love and desperate to see the person who I fell in love with come back to me.
Oh my God, yes.
And it's taken my friends and family members to be like, that's not what's happening. I love you and I know your broken heart needs a break from the pain, but what's happening right now is manipulation and it's to fuck up some other part of your life that you're not looking at right now because you're in such acute pain. So I totally get that for the sake of the children, she wants a peaceful relationship with PK, but you don't go from a 7-page email to a pleasant phone call. That's alcoholism.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Poor Dorit. At some point, she says, after Bose says it feels like a trick. I mean, they're both just like, they are basically doing the verbal version of shaking her by her shoulders and like slapping her awake, like,
It's
girl.
too important not to.
Yeah.
It's so unpleasant. Neither of them are enjoying it. But like when you see a friend who's about to relinquish her financial and physical stability, you got to shake her by the shoulders with your words. And Dorit, she said it. She's like, I don't understand the advantage he would get. And they explained to her. Erica says he's calming you down so he can run the bases on you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. And I'm so glad she has two people with loud, passionate voices. I don't think it landed on her in that dinner, but I think you can't not hear that in your head once, you can't unring that bell. I hope from two divorced women that she will take seriously that warning, because I'm really worried for her.
I am too.
He is going around and doing he's going to shut out all of the good attorneys. And
oh God,
if you don't have a good attorney, it doesn't matter how in the right you are. The bad ones are fucking ruthless and you'll get robbed. And I'm worried. And she'll wind up paying him alimony from the money she makes on this fucking show.
That's fucking insane, dude. Yeah, when Bo says it's a trick, she's like, no, that I can guarantee you. No, it's not a trick. He's not that person. She's got those hopeful Al-Anon glasses on, those Al-Anon rose-colored glasses on. Like, okay, he's sober. We had one phone call that like gave my heart some peace and calmed down my emotional terror. And this, like, okay, phew. And she's doing that Al-Anon thing where you're in denial because of one conversation. That hope is reignited because of one conversation. Whew. Anyway.
It's also a hard transition to go from a love relationship to the dissolution of a business. Like, I think it does take a village to divorce, because you have to keep reminding this person, like, you noticed he called her to have this kind conversation. That shit's not in writing.
Oh,
what's
wow.
in writing is 7 pages of how I'm going to fucking destroy you if you don't do what I want. What is not in writing is I'm willing to work with you. Let's make this happen. I'll give you this or that. Whatever the fuck he said, it's vanished. The courts, it's not relevant in court, so it's not relevant. Sadly. Ugh, it's so icky.
It's just so icky. Oh. Then we move back to Augusta, and Kyle is FaceTiming Kathy, and Kyle's boo-hooing about Mo and Portia going to Europe. He's going to drop her off somewhere, and then he's going to go to Switzerland, and then he's going to meet PK in Saint-Tropez. And even though Kyle looks super like, she's talking about it with that humor, it's probably to cope for like the utter terror and insecurity she's feeling about her not quite, ex-husband, even though she's moved on with Morgan, just still that insecurity about not letting him go and how it's going to hurt her if she sees him on TMZ with frolicking with an influencer.
I mean, it looks like that comes up later in the season,
Oh, God, I forgot. Okay.
Yeah, where he's hugging her saying, I never meant to hurt you. And she's crying. And it's like, well. Then we check in with Garcelle, who's sitting on the couch with Junebug resting its head on her arm, which was so cute. That little dog.
It was so cute. And you know what? Like, it was so un-Frenchy-like to me. Like, I don't know about you, but when I've seen French bulldogs on the street and I try to like have them engage with me, they are not interested at all. I've never met a breed that is less interested in people. I was like, dude, Garcelle, like lap that up. French bulldogs don't do that with just anybody. So that's
so
just
cute.
It was so adorable.
Head on her arm, just looking up at her. It was so sweet.
So jealous. Yeah.
And then we have some displaced anxiety. We go to Sutton, who's in the kitchen with Avi, and she's stressed out over crab cake ingredients. And it's not about the crab cake ingredients. It's not about the pasta. She'll be making her dad's crab cake recipe that, her mom loves so much. She made Sutton cook them for Christmas Eve dinner the day after he died in the house. So these are very loaded crab cakes as she's heading into a very loaded conversation with her mom. So I don't think the breadcrumb being gluten-free is the issue here. So
Kyle and Garcelle are upstairs kind of like yenting it up about how that conversation's going to go. And then I'm going to sound like a real asshole right now, but I'm just being honest. Kyle's confessional in this, where she says, Sutton is scared. Like, no shit, Sherlock. But I love sequins. I love an appropriate use of appropriately sized shoulder pads. But in this confessional, I think Kyle looked like Dynasty meets Baby Jane.
I thought she looked beautiful.
Oh, God.
I loved the dark brown dress and the deep lip and the sleek, shorter hair, I thought she looked, maybe it's just because it was a different look and I was just sick of her in her Augusta vibe. So
I was taken aback.
It was very soap opera. But I enjoyed it. Then Avi sends Cheryl, who is Sutton's housekeeper, to go check on Reba. And Cheryl is exasperated, as everyone is, when they are asked to run an errand that involves Reba.
Because I think she has a broken foot. She, I believe, is wearing a boot that you wear after you have a foot injury. But
it also seems like it's a thankless job to get Reba.
Totally.
Because she goes to get her and she says, Sutton's ready for you. And Reba goes, well, I'm on my way. And again, it's just like, can't you just say great, here I come, instead of just everything is just, it's just awful to be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Cheryl engages with Reba a lot because she keeps that house in Augusta for Sutton. So, and then Reba says goodbye to her dog, Dixie. And we get a quick look at Dixie, who is this fully coiffed, blown out, I don't know what kind of dog it is.
It's an Afghan.
A big dog, long hair, but it was one moment of sweetness from Reba where she's like, I'll be back soon, Dixie. It was cute. She loves her dog. Then Reba enters the kitchen. There's some just uncomfortable silence and discussion of pickled okra. And Sutton shows her mom her capsule collection. And she's desperate for her mom's approval as a career woman, but this was not the way to get it. It just goes left. Sutton tries to explain how complicated it is, and Reba relates it to the journey of ground beef
from Cuba
to the supermarket.
What?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
It was just, if you ever need an example of going to the hardware store for milk, this was it. Trying to explain to an 82-year-old woman a capsule collection in an industry she doesn't care about just gets reduced to ground beef. And then Reba starts preparing a drink and peppering Sutton with annoying questions and refuses Sutton's appetizer dip, saying, I don't eat stuff like that, as she pours from a giant Kettle One handle.
Sutton has a confessional in this scene, and she says, all my life I've wanted to feel accepted by my mother. She was always a career woman. I'm so proud of her. I just want that to be reciprocated. I think that is a completely normal expectation for a child to have of their parents.
Yeah.
And just to it never goes away, regardless of how old you get and how old your parent gets. It just doesn't go away. Oh, broke my heart.
And then we finally sort of launch into the conversation where Sutton tells her mom she doesn't know if Reba understands what she does or if she's proud at all. And Reba just goes, I don't understand any of that. Why do you think I wouldn't be proud of you? Instead of just saying, of course I'm proud of you, sweetheart.
Yeah.
It's just so angry and combative. And Reba says, I don't need to say those things. And Sutton says, well, maybe I need you to. And then Reba, ice cold, just goes, well, okay, I'm proud of you. And it was just that's not what we're going for. And Reba explains her theory on things like pride and love. She says, it's trite and inconsequential to say I'm proud and I love you. It's overused. Sutton doesn't agree to this notion that it's trite to tell your children you're proud of them and you love them. And Reba pointedly says, well, that seems to be an issue for you and a lot of your friends.
Oh my God. My God.
Fucking God.
My God.
And then Reba explains her damage, that she was not raised with any praise or encouragement or nurturing. She was tossed in a crib and just cried herself into oblivion. And she said, and I just kept going. And this is an example of not breaking the cycle, Reba. So just because you went through hell and you put your daughter through hell doesn't mean it's ever too late to stop this hell,
She's a therapist. She's a therapist. Oy. Oy.
And Sutton, this is where I was like, Sutton must be in therapy, because Sutton says, I don't want to force you into doing something that you feel is trite. I just want to let you know how I feel. And Reba, ice cold, goes, oh, thank you very much for telling me that. And I was like, oh my God, this is so unsatisfying. And then Sutton invites Reba to her fashion show in California, and Reba basically says, I can do that. And Sutton is moved to tears And that's where I was like, careful, careful, careful.
Careful.
She
Tread.
just said it. She said it. She didn't do anything. She's not on her phone buying a ticket. Oh, God.
Protect yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just be
then
realistic, Sutton. Be realistic about that.
the
It's so
only
hard to let
it
go of those
is.
expectations. Man.
But the only satisfying part that I thought Sutton can hang on to is Sutton says, I just want better. And Reba says in a light tone, sincerely, we can do better. And Sutton hung on to that. And I think that's the right thing to hang on to. I don't know that she's going to come to the fashion show. I highly doubt it. But that's my own child of an alcoholic cynicism. But I do believe Reba thinks they can do better. And she's willing to try in her own small, peculiar ways. So
She says that she can't sleep in the fish room. And this is a theme on the Housewives now.
yeah.
It's showed up twice at Bluestone Manor. And now she can't sleep in the room with the aquarium. I just thought it was hilarious. Garcelle and Kyle are on the staircase, and they have been listening as much as they can. And this scene, again, like it even just changed my physicality in my chest. Garcelle just rushes to her friend and asks if she's okay. And she says she's so proud of her. And we then go to a shot of Reba at the bar refreshing her drink.
Yes, and then we go into Kyle. Everybody goes in the kitchen to cook, and Kyle's pouring booze down Sutton's throat as she stirs crab cake meat.
Yeah, yeah.
So we all go back. Everyone's going back to their coping
uh-huh.
mechanisms. But they made a little progress, and that's all there is. Progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a dinner table scene, and Sutton tells Reba that she'll be leaving this visit with a smile on her face, and she wants to leave a better daughter. And Reba goes, and a friend. And I was like, well, that is as good as it gets.
Yep.
So I don't know that Reba's going to show up to this fashion show, but that moment, that's the victory with someone as limited as Reba. So,
Completely.
Cheers.
What a fucking jam-packed episode. My God. My God.
Yeah.
I am so glad to leave Augusta. Oh my God, I'm so glad to leave Augusta. Please, the next episode, let's get some Jennifer Tilly, some sequins, some something. Palate cleanser, please. Please.
What else did you watch this week?
We finished season 5 of Below Deck Sailing Yacht. And this was the season where Daisy and Colin had their relationship, and Gary
lost his damn mind.
I don't like Gary, obviously. Like, who likes Gary? He's such a man-child. That whole world is so not fascinating, just it's so unknown to me. And there's just such like a culture. There's a charter yacht culture. And I did look up Colin. You know how Colin always wears those T-shirts, the same T-shirt with the same logo? It says Parlay Revival. Well, I Googled it because I was like, oh, is that like Colin must own a boat? He does own a boat.
No, it's a very popular YouTube channel, and like it's a whole big thing.
And I'm like, oh, I think, I love a graphic tee. I'm powerless over a graphic tee. I might order a Parlay Revival shirt. It has like a scooped hem, so it's not just like straight across. It's like got a more like flattering cut on the hem. And I love Colin. Why do I love Colin? And then we tried watching the first episode of season 6. And I was like, I hate this fucking cast. I don't even know if I can watch this season. I might have to fast forward. I don't know. I'm going to talk to you about that offline, see if it's worth it. Then I watched the Laker game with the debut of Luka Doncic, and it was so great to see the Lakers just win so hard. But it was also like, damn, is it going to be like this? Is it just going to be total blowouts the rest of the season? Because there's something great about watching a game where it's neck and neck and you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, you want your team to win, but you want it to be exciting. So obviously watched the Super Bowl, and man, that halftime show, just talking about it, the hair stood up on my arms. That's a Pulitzer Prize winner. And white people were pissed.
No.
Not all of them. Not all of them, but
335 million people who turned in and stay tuned there. And that is the problem, is there is a small percentage of white people who want you to think that they're everyone. And I think that halftime show proved that is not all these people, everyone's saying like, oh, people were dissatisfied with the show. Were they? Because That was the highest rated Super Bowl halftime show ever, the second highest rated TV moment in history, the first being the moon landing. You're wrong. That is not true. Everybody tuned into that, was moved by it, is compelled by it, and he's right. The revolution was fucking televised. That started something around the world. I heard my whole neighborhood go A minor, the whole fucking neighborhood screaming it. I mean, that whole thing, it's so layered. I've become obsessed with it. It's all I watch. Every lighting cue, movement, piece of clothing. All the men were dressed differently. All the women were dressed exactly the same, down to the wigs. Like, it's endless what that man did. Everything is layered. And it was so courageous to do that. And for Samuel L. Jackson to put himself out there like that. I have such a problem with people talking the talk and not walking the walk. And that to me was a whole stadium that every performer put their ass on the fucking line to be like, this is what I believe in. And I know I am under a government that is in a position to do something awful to me. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because it matters that fucking much. And I loved it.
Unapologetic.
And
art.
Right. And
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, it was just brilliant.
Serena Williams crip walking on a fucking coffin.
And all of it, like everything was layered. It's like that was a slam to Drake. It was also retribution for her awful treatment at the Olympics when she celebrated dancing and got to talk about non-representative white people, but clearly, they stormed out on the court and talked to her. Like, it was just awful. And
didn't she get fined for her outfits too?
I mean, everything. That woman has been through and got penalized for being emotional on the court when men bash rackets throughout the history, including the one commentating on it. That halftime show, I've watched hours of it every day, and I'm not tired of it. And someone needs to write like 50 thesis papers on it.
100%. I bet they are. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there's going to be a college course on it.
It was just everything. Even the necklace, everyone's like, oh, it's A minor, but it's also the logo of his production company, which is this like creative collective. It's not even just a standard like record producing. It's like, let's get people with out of the box ideas in a space and get them to work. And his jeans, literally everything was amazing. And I'll say Drake with the smirk is burned in my brain. It is my new happy place of like him staring down the barrel of the camera. God, he's amazing. He's fucking amazing. It was amazing.
There were just some Bachelor Nation. I'm in the Bachelor subreddit. I gotta leave. It's so fucked. It's not good for my mental health, dude. It's just not good for my mental health. And there were, I think, at least 3 or 4 white dudes from Bachelor Nation that were like, I don't get it. That wasn't good. What, and then.
Yeah, you don't get it.
Yeah,
so
you don't get it.
Listen to people explain it to you because it's fucking everything.
Right. Oh, God. I just was so pissed. I was so pissed that it went over so many heads and just like.
But it landed on so many.
It did. And I am landed on the majority. Yeah. But that fucking minority, the people that just feel so threatened by other people because
they should feel threatened.
They're so used to they're so used to society, the world, this country being for them that when it's not for them, for however long that show lasted, it is outrageous to them. And they are so angry. The gravity and the symbolism of it all far outweigh the people that are crying about it and pissed for their petty reasons.
Well, they should feel threatened. Like, as Kendrick said, 40 acres and a mule, this is bigger than the music.
Yeah.
Like, it was a rallying call. It was a petty fuck you to Drake. It was a visual masterpiece. Like, he accomplished everything. It was so layered and so impactful, and I'll never get tired of watching it. I can't get enough of it. And it was my antidepressant. It remains my antidepressant. It's the most complete work of art I've ever seen in my lifetime. It's
Agreed.
Art and activism, and I'll never get tired of looking at it because every time I watch it, there's something new. Or when I think I've understood all of it, someone's like, oh, did you see the guys sleeping on the lamppost? It might mean this or that. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's just nothing was without a thought. Every single element of that was thoughtful and purposeful and provocative in the best ways.
Yeah.
So I just fucking
Yeah.
loved it.
Oof, my hair just stood up. It's just, it was powerful. Oh, so I got my shingles vaccine last Friday, and it does lay you out about 24 hours after, like 12 to 24 hours after. You know, I had a little fever, my body hurt. And so I watched the entire season of Selling the City, which is the New York version of Selling Sunset. And it's terrible and awful. And I also couldn't look away. So, you know.
Perfect for a shingles vaccine.
It was. Exactly. What else did you watch, friend?
I watched The Traitors and Southern Charm and Southern Hospitality. But the Super Bowl was like the most, all I've been watching are TikToks and reading think pieces and all the shit about the halftime show. It just was so impactful. That was my antidepressant. And another piece of my antidepressant was also in the Super Bowl related to this show. There was this pregame interview with A.J. Brown, who's a player on the Eagles, who wound up winning in like a really demonstrative fashion. But at the time this interview was done, obviously that outcome was not known. And he, a couple years ago, spoke openly about being suicidal as a member of a successful team in the NFL. So it reminded me of, there was the press conference he gave when he had first come out as being depressed and suicidal. And he gave a press conference, and he had just said depression got the best of him and someone was there for him. And he wants everyone to know that someone is waiting there for them too. And he said when he shared that, so many teammates came up to him and shared their experiences. And in the press conference, a reporter asked a question crying. You know, she was asking a question, and she said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "It's okay. It's okay." Like, just so, you know, when someone's just like absolutely in their body and totally available.
Mm-hmm.
This gigantic football player was that. And they went on to win the Super Bowl. And it reminded me of J.J. McCarthy, our Michigan quarterback from a year ago, who, you know, also struggles with ADHD and depression from that, and does meditation before every game. All these people who are attending to their mental health are champions. And I feel like that message is slightly starting to break through. If you talk about your suicidal ideation, you become an undisputable champion. If you talk about your ADHD and depression and you take visible care of yourself by meditating on the field before every game, you are a champion. Like, it's not just a mindset, like you feel better, like you do. Life is better when you confront these painful things. So off
You're
my
right.
soapbox.
No, it's not a soapbox. I don't like, I've never, you know, shied away from the fact that I can't stand fucking football. I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's just so, there's too much math I don't understand. It's so slow and the noise is terrible. But I always love, this is like the third football player I think that you've shared about since this podcast started that has been, you know, a big burly sportsman talking about this is what we need. More normalizing, taking care of your mental health and talking about the struggles. More of it. In that aspect, I love football. Okay, there we go.
I think maybe in the show notes, I'll send you the link for the YouTube thing of that press conference that he gave, because it's so worth watching. Please. It's short and it's so impactful to see someone just say, I needed help. I asked for help, and everybody needs help sometimes. So ask for help. Anyway, 100. What was your antidepressant?
I honestly think that it is doing this podcast this morning. Again, like I hadn't, this is so shameful for me to admit. Like, you know, it had been a couple days since I showered. I knew I should, but I couldn't get out of bed. I should have washed my hair. Couldn't get in the shower, so why would I wash my hair? I was just taken down, dude. I set my alarm. I got up. I showered. I slapped on some makeup, and now I'm ready for the rest of my day. And I'm so grateful that I had this commitment with you today. Same. That's my antidepressant.
And it's not shameful. You wouldn't shame someone who had the stomach flu
I
for
would
throwing
never.
up.
I would never. Why do I still do it to myself,
Because
man? Why?
it's how we've been programmed, but yeah, you just had a bout of depression and you may still be recovering. It's again, you wouldn't ask someone with the stomach flu to get in the shower and get their shit together. They
Yeah.
have to throw up until they're done barfing.
You're right.
So,
You're right. You're right.
you did great. You fucking showered and showed up. That's
Yeah.
2 wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone, we have come to the end of a fairly heavy episode of A Therapeutic Dose. I don't know what else to say other than thank you for listening and
Take care of yourselves.
take care of yourselves.
And we'll
Yeah,
talk
take care
next
of
week.
yourselves. And we'll talk next week. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Love you, friend.
Love you.
Ramona and Margee are, obviously, not doctors and do not provide medical advice. Their content is intended to be used for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be, should not be interpreted as, or used as a substitute for medical advice or a diagnosis of any health or fitness problem, condition, or disease, nor a recommendation for a specific test, doctor, care provider, procedure, treatment plan, product, or course of action.
My mom is a doctor.